Welcome to Socket, everyone. Today we have one of my wonderful friends, Patti Minglin, joining us. Patti is a mom of three. She owns Go Girl Communications, and she is one of our co-hosts on the Moms Network on NCTV 17. Welcome, Patti. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Patti and I can talk for hours and hours and hours. So we're going to try to not do hours for you.
Right. We're not going to make you sit and listen to our hours and hours long conversation.
But we're very entertaining. So at least
So
we are to ourselves.
Right.
This past Sunday was Mother's Day. And during this time, we are kind of quarantined in still. But what was your Mother's Day like this year?
It was fantastic. I have older children, and so I have one at home that is a junior in high school, and he has been quarantined with his parents for the beginning, and he is we're entertaining, like, don't get me wrong, but when you're 16, we can only be so entertaining. So he was super excited because the two big kids came home.
Nice.
They have been quarantined in their own homes, and so we felt like it was safe enough to just have them come to our house for a 24-hour period. Neither one of them live in town anymore. My middle son just graduated from college, so we had our virtual celebration because, they can't walk across the stage and go to Sullivan's for dinner. Yeah, it was really great to just have the three kids, the three originals. The original Minglins, and it was 24 hours, but it was great. It was fun.
That's awesome. My boys, I've got two boys, and then my fiance has a son, and they are 17, 16, and 13, and those kids are just living their best lives right now.
Oh, yeah.
Not having to go to school, not get up at 6, 7 in the morning. They're, like gaming at night. Sometimes I'll wake up to go to the bathroom. It's like 2:30 and I can hear from my bathroom is matched up with Christopher's room, and I can hear he's still going. And so my Mother's Day started at about 2, which is kind of once, the restless start waking up, and they've normally been awake for a little bit, but then we normally hear them come downstairs somewhere between 1 and 2 because there's a food issue that needs to be resolved. It was a super nice Mother's Day. We don't normally do any big celebration anyway.
Right.
Normally there's a couple flowers, there's a couple cards, there's a couple little gifts. But I was just happy to relax, and I got a Mother's Day nap, which was fantastic.
Fantastic.
I know. Naps are
great. I think somebody had a meme once that said, like, everything that used to be my punishment is now what I consider a great day.
It was like staying home from the party, having to take a nap.
Right.
Something else was on it. That just cracked me up because it's so me.
Oh my gosh, me too. Like, a nap is just like gold. I love
As I've gotten older, I've been able to hone in like the 20-25-minute nap, and I know when it's going to happen. And before, I used to have like a 3-hour window of, I need this 3-hour window before I'm going to even think about laying down to take a nap. Now I'm like, I need to lay down right now. And,
that's super good, though, because I think that if we become more self-aware of what our body needs and when it needs it, and I'm not saying if you're in the middle of a meeting and you're like, hey, I got to lay my head down. But I think that you have to listen to that because it means something. If you're so tired, because I know, I have a company where I'm creative, like I'm writing a lot. And if I'm tired physically, my creativity is not good. Like, I'm not doing myself or my clients any favor by trying to push through the tiredness. If I could lay down for 20 minutes, I would be better.
Yep. The other day I got kind of everything set up for Socket for taping my online courses. I got the lighting figured out. I got the microphones figured out, and all of that technology kind of scares me. So every day I have to kind of open it up and be like, what do I have to figure out today? I started a YouTube channel and uploaded videos, and but anyway, I got it all figured out and I was so excited. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to eat lunch and I'm going to go record a couple of courses or a couple of lessons. And as soon as I got done eating, I was exhausted. And I think I just had expended the energy I had for creative work during that day.
Right.
And I thought about, well, you know what? I told myself I was going to do this. And I'm like, I'm not in the right mood. I'm not in the right mindset. So I canned it. And then I figure I'll do it, some of it this weekend. So.
And that's good. If you can do that, then you should do it. Like I will say that to everybody.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't have the luxury. Like you said,
No.
you're in the middle of a meeting. You can't be like, excuse me, I'm going to lay down for a second.
I
I'm going
just need
to play 7-Up real quick.
Oh my
Remember
gosh,
7
remember
Up?
Heads Up, 7-Up? I love that game.
So some of our younger listeners are gonna be like, what
No,
on
they
earth
are.
you
They're
talking
going to be
about?
like, I don't even know what that is. It sounds horrible.
Right. It's like when they wheeled in the AV, right? When they wheeled in the TV and you're like, yes, we're watching a movie and then we're going to play Heads Up 7-Up. This is the best day ever.
Oh my gosh, it would be. That would have been like the greatest day in elementary school of all time.
So what we're here to talk about is kind of the common theme and teachings of Socket is there are three things, three components. It's what in your life do you have to toss? What do you need to think about recycling? And what do you need to elevate? And if you can get through those three categories and put your life and the different parts of your life in those categories correctly, you really are doing a good job. And so I just want to have a conversation with you of in your life, what have you found that you've had to put in those categories and how have you made those decisions and what does that look like for you?
Well, I'm going to start with toss simply because it's my hardest. Like I think everybody will have one of those categories that's going to be kind of the hardest to do for them. And for me, that disconnecting and unplugging from something that no longer serves me is super hard. It used to be hard for me to decipher what wasn't serving me, which sounds really ridiculous, but like I would want to hang on to it so much that it's almost like I was holding on to it so tightly that I couldn't see it for what it was, what it really was. And then even when I would realize this isn't good for me, this isn't good for what I'm trying to do, it was really hard for me to let go. And I say that in two ways. I've had to let go of, I've had to let go. My biggest one I think I've let go of is the preconceived idea in my head of what my life should look like. Especially when I started a business. I was an accidental entrepreneur. I still consider myself an accidental entrepreneur all these years later. Because I didn't, I don't have an entrepreneurial mind. I'm not one that's like, I'm going to start a company and then I'm going to sell a company, or I'm going to start a company. That's not me. And so I have been learning everything by stumbling and falling and all the pieces. And I love social media, but social media can really play with your head about what it's supposed to look like. Absolutely. So you would see these female entrepreneurs or these moms who are doing it all. And I would think that's the way my life is supposed to look. And it doesn't look like that. No. I must be doing something wrong. And
have you ever seen that meme? I think it's a meme where it says what you think success looks like, and then it says what success actually looks like. And it's like a chart, and what you think it looks like is just this, increasing line up where it just gets better and better and better and better and better. And what it really looks like is this squiggly mess up and down and pitfalls and, restarting. And I mean, success, there's so many different terms or so many different ways to describe and explain success, but the thought process of success in business is so not linear. It is a journey of all journeys.
It is, and it looks different for everyone. Yeah. Whatever. And I think it took me a long time to just get rid of the idea that I just have to create my own success. What does that look like? How do I define it? And if I define it differently than every other female entrepreneur out there, that's okay. As long as I feel okay about it. But and I still struggle with that. Like I still, pull up Instagram. I'm like, oh, why am I not doing that? Like, why did she look so much better than I look in that? Or why, that was a great idea. Why didn't I do that? And so I had to really toss that out. And with that also came the tossing out of some friendships and relationships that weren't part of what my new definition of success was. They weren't there to support me. They weren't there to encourage me. And when it comes to people, I'm not saying people were bad, like, oh, they're awful people. They're great people. And I enjoy these people, but they just weren't serving me anymore. And they were making it more difficult. And so I had to toss some people, clients, friends, and and I'm horrible at it. Like I sit here talking about like, oh yeah, I just toss them. I know. I'm holding on to things right this minute that I'm like, I know, and you know that I'm holding
Uh-huh.
on to things that I should be getting rid of. Like every week I say, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? It's like, why am I doing this?
Uh-huh. It's not easy. And, when we use the word toss, we don't mean callously like, oh, we're just
Correct.
ditching you. It's a
Right.
lot of thought process that has to go into when you do have to decide not to work with a client anymore, or you do have to kind of distance yourself from a friend that is sucking the life out of you, or you're putting all of the energy into it. And you realize at the end of the day, they're not really interested in you. They're not asking questions about you. You're just talking
Correct.
about them the whole time. And that's okay for different seasons. And obviously people can be going through really tough times where the focus needs to be on them. I'm not talking about that.
Absolutely.
But in that general sense of when again, as you get older, I think you have limited time, right? We've got kids, we've got relationships, we've got a house to take care of. We have a business maybe. And all the things that go along with it. And there's a finite amount of time. And so I found that I've been better at allotting the time with things I really want to do and people I
Mm-hmm.
really want to spend time with. And I've had to toss kind of like big events and parties for the most part. There are some things that I'm still very passionate about going to. Some events I'm hosting myself. So apparently I have to go to those. Um,
Yeah, that's usually a criteria when you're
yeah,
the
when you're
host.
running an event, you have to show up. Darn it. Um, and it's funny because I run a moms group in the western suburbs called the Branch Moms, and we host girls' night outs and networking events and play dates and things like that. Right now, obviously, we've had to put a little pause on that during this quarantine time, but the day before I have these events, I'm like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I plan these things? And during the event and after the event, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. This was awesome. Like I met these great people, or I could see these moms connecting. And so anyway, it's always awesome once you've done it. But talking about just that tossing, when I got divorced, which was 12, 13 years ago, I realized that I would spend time with these groups of women and couples. And when I was with them, I realized they were really spending a lot of time talking about other people. And I don't know why I didn't realize this prior to getting divorced. I don't know. I just had an awakening, I think, of what I wanted in my life and what wasn't working for me anymore. But I really left this one party in particular, and I went home and I thought, good God, if they're just talking about all these other people that I know when I'm not there, what do I think they're talking about? They're talking
Right.
about me. And so I had to kind of filter through and distance. I didn't completely toss. There's lots of people that I, still talk to on a semi-regular basis, but just not the same amount of time. And so
It's in,
that's hard. It's hard to do that tactfally
it
without
is.
people like looking at you like, oh, she just, she's too good for us, or she doesn't like us anymore.
Because
And that's
that's
not the
not
case
what
at
that
all.
is. Right. That is absolutely not the case. I think there's a lot of people and things that I've tossed that I think are great.
Yeah,
And I think they serve their purpose at the time. Like
sure.
I think that the relationships I had, they were supposed to be that way. They brought me to this place.
Yep.
But it has to, for me, it always is energy. Like, what
Yeah.
is it? Like how, like you were just saying, when you're done with those events, your energy is like up and you
Yep.
feel good and you feel, and that's like, then that should be still in your life, because that's how you end it. But we all have those moments where when we're done with either the event or the person or the client,
Yeah.
we don't feel that energy. It's like
No.
it drained every ounce of us, and
Yeah.
it makes us not want to do it. And I think that, like, if we just paid attention to what we feel, like our energy source,
Hmm.
um, that may help us toss those things that, okay, this isn't working.
I agree. I totally agree. Easier said than done, but it's a practice. Everything in life is a
Right,
practice,
right,
you know?
right. Oh, it's way easier said than done. Again, I'm should be tossing things right this minute, and I'm not.
So have you ever found something in your life that you thought maybe you had to toss or maybe you had to rethink, but you actually just had to recycle it?
Yeah. And I hope my husband's listening to this because I am getting ready to share
Hi,
our
Dan.
personal life. So I had to recycle my relationship with my spouse. And I wasn't thinking of tossing, but let me just say that out there, Dan. I wasn't thinking of tossing you. But when I really made the decision to, again, because I'm an accidental entrepreneur, when I first started this, I was almost like a freelancer. So it, my life didn't change so much from going from corporate world to freelancing. Like I still had the same kind of hours. I still was doing the same kind of things. But then when I decided to like really start a business and scale a business, my time became a little bit more fragmented.
Sure.
And this wasn't, in all honesty, this wasn't what my husband signed up for at the beginning of this relationship. He didn't sign up for somebody. You know, I've always had little workaholic tendencies, but this was harder to rein in because I worked from home and it was available at all times for me to do whatever. And we had to have, you know, some serious conversations and go to therapy about what does this relationship look like now? This is different.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the time, gosh, I don't know how long we had been married, 20 some years. I mean, we'd been married a long time. So we just had to look at that and say, okay, well, how can we love each other? This relationship matters. I feel like this relationship's a good energy source. It does fulfill me.
Yep.
So how can I make it work better for the purpose of right now?
Yeah.
And that meant, you know, he had to accept a little bit less time from me. He had to pick up a little bit more home responsibilities. But then I also had to make sure that I reined in that tendency to sit in my office on Saturdays all day long and just do work. Like I needed to say, hey, you know what? I got to put some boundaries around my work life in order for my personal life to thrive. And that the whole idea of boundaries is something I recycle all the time. I mean, that is boundaries with clients, you know, letting them, I'm not going to be able to do your work on Sunday evenings and I'm not going to be able to take your call because that's the boundary I've set for myself.
Yeah.
And I got to set that with you. And so there's a lot of, and I change like client boundaries I have to work on all the time. And it's always me. It's never them. Like it's always me wanting to do the work or getting excited for their work, but then having to realize, oh, wait a minute. I have other things.
As soon as you break those boundaries once or twice, then the client or even the person in your life, if it's not a business relationship, kind of feels like, you know what, I can keep doing that, right? They did it that one time or they did it twice in a row. So why wouldn't they do it a third time? And so I think recycling boundaries is a great idea and something that a lot of people probably don't think about. Setting boundaries is not the easiest thing to do as a human.
No. No. And we have to really do it with, and I think women more than men have a really hard time with that. And even setting boundaries with our kids, you know, and I know we have talked a lot and you talk a lot about this in all of your brands, but there's, you know, self-care is really important. And we somehow think that is being selfish and we shouldn't do that. But our kids are watching that. And our kids need to, it's okay to say, I cannot play this 100th game of Candyland because I need to like sit by myself for just, you know, I need 10 minutes to meditate. Like it's okay to do that. And you're a better person when you come out of that and your kids see that. Yes. So I think boundaries are, and I think they're the perfect recyclable thing.
Yep.
And you may have to change them throughout your life. You may have to set new ones.
Yep. Well, and just to touch on self-care for another moment, I always feel like moms feel too guilty to do it because then they're taking time away from their kids or their spouse or their obligations. In my perspective, if I teach my kids that my self-care is necessary and important and valuable and needed, then ultimately I am teaching them that their self-care is important as well.
Right.
And I just feel as if we teach our kids that I as a woman and mother are not important and my needs are not as important as yours, that sets a tone for their life that is not necessarily going to lead them down the right path. But if
Correct.
they knew from a very early age, you know what, mom's, going out with some girlfriends tonight, or mom's taking a bubble bath, or mom's, in her room, just taking a break, doing some meditation, taking a nap. I'll just say to my kids, I'm going to take a nap. And now they're 16 and 17. So they don't need me to take care of them and keep them alive anymore.
My
For the
son
most
is
part,
thrilled.
hopefully.
My 16-year-old is thrilled if I say I'm going to take a nap. He'd be like, thank goodness you're not going to be hanging out with me.
Well, and I would say for my recycling, there's so many things I've recycled. Oh my goodness. I feel as if I've been a different person every single decade of my life.
Mm,
And if I think about the woman I was in my 30s and the woman I was in my 20s and the woman I was, or the girl I was in my, 10 to 20, my teens, dude, those are like 5 different people
right.
compared to who I am now, or 4 different people. And so one of the largest things I've had to recycle, and this is an ever going operation, I feel like it
Right.
never ends,
I
is
agree.
my relationship with myself. I grew up in a household where weight and food was talked about a lot. And that was due to the fact that at an early age, I was an athlete, from the time I was 6 years old, a swimmer, diver, gymnastics, all these different things. And so when I would go to the doctor, they'd put me on that darn scale and they would look at this one chart, and it would have your height here and your weight here. And they'd look at my height and they'd look at my weight and they'd pinpoint where that was. And they'd say, she weighs too much. She needs to lose weight.
Mm,
And so from a very early age, implanted in my little subconscious Cathy Seber brain, was you're fat, you're overweight. And the fact is that I wasn't. I mean, I look back at pictures during that time and I'm just muscle. And so my body weighed more because I had a high amount of
right.
muscle. And so my mom, just trying to follow doctor's orders, put me on a very low calorie diet. And even if I did gymming or gymnastics or swimming or diving or whatever for a couple of hours, I would come home and do this Jane Fonda workout video. And ultimately I would lose that 15 pounds. And it was like, hey, you did it, and my mom would like go buy me new clothes and I just felt loved and praised. And so I got it in my thick skull that if I weighed a certain amount and I was considered skinny, that I was loved and that I was worthy of feeling love and praise.
Yeah.
And so that has been a decade long unraveling nightmare sometimes to deal with. But slowly but surely, and with tons of counseling. I mean, shout out to all those counselors and therapists
Oh,
out
for
there.
sure.
Shelly, love you. Totally changed my life. But I've had to determine how I talk to myself and how I allow myself to talk to myself, talk about boundaries. Probably about 8 years ago, I was really diving into this because I'm like, I treat myself like a piece of shit. I just do. I say the most god awful things to myself that I would never say to my enemies.
Oh my gosh, right. We
And
never would talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves. I would
no,
never, the words that go through my head about me, in a million years, I would never say that to my friends.
seriously. I mean, where did this soundtrack come from?
I have no idea. And it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to, or like, since we're talking about recycling, it's hard to just change that narrative. To
Yep.
say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to say these things to myself. I think, aren't you the one that paid attention to how many bad thoughts you had in your head?
Yeah. So it was, like I said, it was like 7 or 8 years ago. I decided I was going to do a little test. And on one morning, from the moment my eyes opened to the moment that I left the house to go to my practice, which was 25 minutes, because I am fast at getting ready. That's like shower, blow drying hair.
Gosh,
I'm
that's
pretty
actually
quick.
super impressive.
It is a little impressive. So, but anyway, lots of things I don't do well, but that one I've got, nailed down. Anyway, in that 25-minute period of time, I literally said 25 nasty things to myself, ranging from your stomach is disgusting, you're disgusting, you're so fat, how did you let yourself get this way? You've gained so much weight. Oh, I can't fit into my jeans. What shirt is going to not look fat on me? And it just it just went for that entire 25 minutes. It's like
Wow.
1 a minute.
Right.
And it was very eye-opening to me. And I decided at that moment, I cannot speak to myself this way anymore. It does not serve me well. It's damaging.
Yes.
So I made just I worked hard at trying to figure out how do I stop that. And I literally at one point I printed out a stop sign and just put it up on my mirror, or I had one in my
Oh,
purse, and I would visually just pull it out and be like, stop. You never say this to someone else. Why are you saying
yeah.
it to yourself? Um, so over the years, it's helped me develop a much better relationship with me, and being kind to myself, and realizing that, I'm not a supermodel. I don't have personal trainers and chefs at my disposal. I do have a lot of things going on, and that, I'm not going to be bikini ready anytime soon, and that's just okay. You know,
And
got a
it's
couple
not
extra
just
curves.
right, not just during this quarantine. I mean, like any summer, I'm not going to be bikini ready. So this is,
It
you
is.
can just say that out loud.
And it's funny because in the relationship I'm in now, every once in a while, something will still come out of my mouth, like some snide comment, like, all right, I'm not going to look my best, or something. And I remember one time, Jason, I was walking up the stairs and I said something. I don't remember what I said to myself. And he looked at me and he said, please don't speak to the woman I love that way. And
Oh,
I
wow.
it just took me aback, and I looked at him and I said, thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
That's
Um,
super powerful
it
to
was
say that,
awesome.
because that is just a great reminder of who you are in his eyes, but who you are in your eyes. Like that's a gift that he said that.
It has been, again, this unraveling of me believing that someone who's thin is valuable and someone who is heavier set has some issues. And so I've had to work on how I judge others as
Oh
well, which
yeah.
is terrible. I mean, I don't mean to do that, and now that I'm aware of it, I do not. But I would say I did for a little while, and that's, not one of the chapters I want to open back up in my book of life and reread 14 times. But
Yeah, we all have those for sure. But I think that, that whole idea of just figuring out, paying attention to us, we said that at the beginning. And I think this whole idea of tossing, recycling, and elevate, which I know we're going to get to,
yep,
I think we have to start with knowing ourselves really, really well, like paying
yeah,
attention to what it is we feel, both physically and emotionally. And
yep,
and I'm reading this book. I laugh every time I say that I'm reading this book, because every time I talk to you, when I'm reading any book, I am quoting it all the time. So right now, my latest crush book is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I think
yep,
many people have recommended it. And she has this really great thing in there where she talks about how she started meditating because somebody told her that was what she needed to do. And she's like, this is ridiculous. I can't do it. But they said, you just need 10 minutes to sit in yourself. And
yep,
so every day she had little kids. And so she would go into her closet for 10 minutes a day and just start to meditate. And she said it was awful. In the beginning, she was thinking of her grocery list, or thinking about a client thing, or thinking about the kids are doing something, or whatever it was. And she just kept bringing herself back to the breathing.
yep,
But every day she would do this. And she's like, I would, to the point where I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm never going to do it. But it's only 10 minutes. It's just 10 minutes. And then one day, after all this time, she realized she could really feel how she was feeling in
yeah,
this situation. And it gave her such clarity on what to do next. And now she's developed it so much that she can do that in the middle of a meeting. Like, she doesn't
mm.
have to go to a closet to say, give me 10. It's like the nap. Give me 10 minutes and I will come back with a really great idea. But her whole idea, and I don't know if this is how she says it, but it's how I view it. You have to sink into yourself in order to rise. You have to sink before you rise. You have to really dig deep. And
Yeah,
if you can, then you can really get some clarity on, what do I need to toss? What is not working? And it's not
yep,
going to work. Even if I recycle it, even if I transform it, it's not going to work for me right now.
yeah,
And then, moving into elevate, what things bring me such energy and make me feel like I'm whole. I
mhm,
need to do more of those. Like, whatever those are, I
Yeah.
need to do more of those.
So what are you finding in your life right now that you're working on elevating?
I think, it's funny. I am an English major, which my dad was super happy to hear me majoring in English because who wouldn't be? Um, and but I ended up in the business world. I ended up in sales and marketing, which I loved, and it was great. But writing has always been where my creativity is. It's always been where I think like my clarity comes from. Now I have a content company, so that's super good for me that happens. But I was so busy on the business side of it that I'd forgotten the writing side of it, like how much
Mm.
I really loved the writing side of it. And so I'm elevating, I'm plugging in more to the writing part of it. And even if
Yeah.
it's not client projects, it's my own writing and being able to, and I'm also really, I'm super, and this comes with two things. It comes with age and it comes with experience. Like once you've done something for a while and you feel pretty confident in your knowledge base, I guess,
Mhm.
and you are at an age where you don't really, I don't want to say I don't care what people think. That's not it at all. But you start to think, I care more about what I think of myself than what somebody
Yeah.
else does.
Yep.
And because of that, I don't take on every client. Like there are some clients that just don't fit for me. I've now learned like where I do my best work. And
Yep.
so if you come to me with project A, I'm going to tell you if that's not a fit for me. That doesn't mean your project isn't good or you're not good. That means I'm not going to do my best work in that environment.
Mhm.
And you should get my best. If you're going to pay me, you should get my best.
Yep. And
And
if the topic doesn't excite you or the business doesn't excite you, then you're not going to want to work on it and you're not going to
no,
put that best energy into that project.
right. And there's always going to be issues and problems. Like, I have long-term clients and something always happens along the way. A website doesn't get launched on the right time or something happens, something. I would rather have to deal with those issues with people that I fit with than
Yeah.
people that I don't, because we're going to get through it and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And
Kind of
it's,
like go against the grain, right? You want to be going
yeah,
smoothly with the grain. Because
right.
even when you're going with the grain, there's going to be issues that come up and arise that
Oh,
you
for
have to
sure.
handle. And if you're with a little bit more like-minded people or you're on the same wavelength, it's so much easier to navigate those issues.
And somewhere along the line, I was told that I shouldn't just live into things that bring me joy.
Hmm.
Like I should struggle a little. Like there should be some struggle. And I believed that for a really long time.
Hmm.
And so when things were bringing me too much joy, I'd be like, oh, well, then I should be doing something else to bring me, I don't know, bring me sadness or discontent. But now I
I'm just
realize,
too
you know what?
darn happy right now.
Right. Like why do we have to why do I have to wait for the other shoe to fall? Like why can't I just be living in the space that I love and figuring out, and I don't want to get all Pollyanna, if you do what you love, the money will follow. Like that's not what I'm saying either, but what is it that what is it that I do really, really well? Like from a business, if you need to make an income, like for me, I have to work. What can I do with this? The thing that I love the most, that I do the best. How can I make money doing that?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
figure that out. And that's just it. So I live in a space, I'm elevating everything that just brings me joy. I'm working with people that I love. I hope all my clients are seeing this because you will all know that you're loved. I love every single one of you because they just do great, amazing things. And I'm happy to watch that happen. And I get excited about that. I talk about women's leadership. I do a lot with that. I think women leaders, I'm not going to even start on that, but I could talk about that for days.
It's I know, and I think you and I are so similar that our love for women who are helping other women
Ugh,
um, rise and elevate and transform. And I just, it's so important. It's so important for us to do this work together. So I'm thankful to have you in my corner of the ring.
oh my gosh, I feel the same way. You're right. I love women helping women. I just think it's the best.
When I think about what I'm elevating right now, there's a couple of things. The thing that comes to mind, I guess it goes back to my recycle about, being kinder to myself and speaking kinder to myself. I can be kind to myself all day long, but the fact was I haven't been the healthiest version of myself. And that's just a reality I have to face. I can still be kind to myself even when I'm not the healthiest. But once I turned 45 last year, no age has bothered me. I've had friends of mine that, I was 40 and they were turning 30, and you would have thought it was the end of life. I was just like, you're only 30 years old. What are you talking about? You're a baby. But my birthdays throughout the years never, ever triggered any emotional negativity for me. I'm like, all right, well, I'm 1 year older. Awesome. Learned a few more lessons, But when I hit 45, my best friend Emily came to visit. I had broken my leg right after it, or right before it actually. And I couldn't get around. Like, I was on a scooter. I couldn't drive. I couldn't leave my house without help. And I thought, wow, I don't want this. I don't want my life to look like this ever.
Mm-hmm.
You see 80-year-olds that are out golfing every other day or playing tennis. You also see 80-year-olds that are sitting on the couch and really aren't able to get up without help.
Right.
And now some of those people have issues that are beyond their control, but much of it is life choices and whether you decide to keep moving or not, and what you decide to eat and what you decide to drink. And so I'm really trying to plug into my own health. And
Mm.
again, this has been a journey of seemingly 1,000 years for me. And as I have been working on Socket and the branding and what I want to communicate through Socket, it has occurred to me, like, all these lessons that I want to teach for this one part of my life I haven't been following. And
Mm.
I had to dig down a little deeper and say, who do I want to be? Who do I want to emulate? What habits do I want to have to become what type of person? Because those everyday habits are going to determine what your life looks like. So I've just been eating really healthy, having snacks along the way too, but I'm trying to slow down when I eat. I eat so fast.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know where I got that. I'm not really sure, but, and then moving my body every day, walking if I can outside. And that has been awesome. I feel so much better. And I've been doing this for about a month. And, I've lost some weight, and I don't get too hung up on how many pounds I've lost or gained. The scale is so wackadoodle anyway.
Right.
I try not to give too much energy to a $25 piece of plastic in any part of my life. It just doesn't.
That's beautiful.
But one of the numbers that I've been tracking is my resting heart rate. And my resting heart rate in 1 month has gone down 7 points. And that is something that
Wow.
I'm great. I mean, that's a huge, I'm still not in the great range. I'm kind of in the you're okay range. But before I was in an unhealthy range.
Right.
So in 1 month, actions that I can choose and I have complete control over brings that level of health, or that level of new health. That's something that I'm excited about.
Well, and I think you brought up that good point about, like, thinking, who do I want to be? Like, who is it that I want to be? And I think what a great experiment to do is to sit down and do that. Like, write it down.
Yeah.
Who is it that you want to be? And what steps can you take right now to begin being that person? And they're not going to happen overnight. And it's not going to, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, but you need a full-time job right now, it's not possible. But what could you do to move towards that? Is there something you could do on the side? And I think that sometimes we think, I got to make these decisions and I got to do them all right now. Like, do those little things, like, look at the difference, the little things, little changes you made. Look at the big differences at the end of a month.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens in all areas of our life. If we could just, like, who is it that I really want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I get there?
And I can get a little all or nothing. So I'm trying
me
to
too, for sure.
untrain my brain. Like, maybe I have one terrible eating day, or I don't work out for 3 days. And all of a sudden, I don't know, it's like Chutes and Ladders. Like, I just went to shoot and fell all the way back to the beginning.
Right.
Like, and how defeated that feels, defeating that.
Yes.
Um, and and how exciting it is when you get that ladder, right? Especially that long ladder in that game. Oh my gosh, that was
Gosh, it's so. I love that we have mentioned Heads Up, 7 Up, Candyland, and Shoots and Ladders all in the same conversation. And there are young people watching this that are like, "What?
what? Oh, they have to know Candyland. Isn't that universal?
I think that is, but is Shoots and Ladders? I don't know.
I don't know. I think when we get together, we should play a game of shoots and ladders.
Let's do. I probably still have one in the basement. I'm gonna look for it.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
think I've got Battleship. We ordered a couple going into quarantine.
God, I loved Battleship.
We've been playing Monopoly. Oh, sorry. That's
Oh, that's a good one too.
yeah. And then I annoy my whole family because like when you do the slide, I'm like, you
Yeah.
have to go slide. And they're like, Mom, really? I'm like, come on, it makes it more fun. Well, Patty,
I understand.
thank you so much for coming on today. And
Oh, this is
wonderful
great.
conversation. Like I said, I could just chat with you all day long. Sometimes we do, actually.
Right.
And I know
Okay.
you've got some exciting things on the horizon. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to share that once you put all of the things that you're working on together.
I know. I am too. I can't wait. It goes back to that, women in leadership love that I have, and finding a way to really connect with women leaders in our very own community. Like, there's so many great women, and I just want the whole world to know who they are and what they're about. So
That's awesome. I can't wait. Well, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and thank you for tuning in to Socket. Have a wonderful one. Thank you.
see ya.
Bye.